Welcome to the Rex Andrews Show. Glad to have you. If you are a first-time listener, thank you for tuning in. You know, there are a lot of choices in the marketplace. There's over 2 million active podcasts out there with over 100 million episodes. So it's great to have you aboard. Welcome to the program. And a couple things. Don't forget to subscribe because that way you get all the latest updates. And also, too, I'm not afraid to beg. We'll beg for those 5 stars. If you'll give us the 5 stars, that would be awesome. So thank you for tuning in. For those who are returning, thank you very much. Glad to have you. And in fact, we always like to recognize our listeners. I want to do a shout out to the folks in Northport, Florida. So that's great. And I know we're going to add some today based on the location of our guest. What's fantastic about our listeners is we're in 32 countries across more than 470 cities and 6 continents. And if I could figure out a way to market to those pesky penguins and then also help them charge their cell phones, we'd probably have listeners in Antarctica too. All right. So one last thing, you know, you can find us on all the social media platforms. You can find us anywhere that podcasts are distributed. But I always remind people to visit the show website. The reason for that is our guests, we talk about their lives and who they are and their success and the things they're doing, but we only scratch the surface most of the time. So our guests all have a profile page on the website and information about them, and then links to their businesses and their social media. Because we can't tell it all in the time we have on each episode, so please do stop by rexandrewshow.com and check out our guests, whether it's the previous guests or current guests today or those upcoming. All right. Glad we have all that nonsense out of the way. I'm excited about today's guest. We are doing this, I don't know how many thousands of miles away, but we are a lot of thousands of miles away today, I guess. And this is the first, you know, I always like to point out the first. This is my first guest that is appearing from Dubai. And so that's pretty exciting. You know, we've interviewed people from all over the world, but the first time from Dubai. So we're excited to have them on board in this guest. And so it's really exciting. And, you know, our show is all about people's stories and what they're doing. So this is an interesting descriptor, okay? And this is what she told me is she's a rebel educator. So I don't know what a rebel educator is. And so we're going to find out today. So I'd like to welcome to the show, Marilyn Pinto. Marilyn, how are you?
I'm very good. Thank you for having me, Rex. I'm super thrilled to be here.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Wow. What an honor to have you be my first guest in Dubai. That's fantastic. Excited. You know, my brother's been to Dubai a few times, but I haven't had a chance yet. So welcome.
It's a
Glad
great
to
place.
have you. It's a great place. So anyway, as you know, Marilyn, listening to the show, it's about the stories, and success doesn't fall out of the sky. Now, where I live not too long ago, parts of a United Airlines engine fell out of the sky, just about 3 blocks from me, but success doesn't do that. So we want to go back and understand how you got to where you are today to be this rebel educator. So we want to go back in time and understand, where were you born? Where were you raised, which can often be very different. Do you have siblings? Okay, and we'll learn about that a little bit because that contributes to who we are. What your parents did or doing, because parental support or examples can be either really positive or, hey, wait a minute, I don't want to be anything like that. So we learn about that. We want to learn what you focused on and did with your spare time growing up. So whether you were into computers or reading or dance or sports or whatever it happens to be. I even had a guy who was a thief. By the time he was 15, he was a car thief. So, well, you know, whatever type of things you did as a kid, and I'm not assuming that you were a car thief. And then we'll hop through your education and talk about some pivot points and influences in your life. And then I really want to talk about what you're doing today. So anyway.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. Now, don't worry about that list. If you forget some of those, I'll remind you. Okay.
Oh, phew. I was, furiously scrambling and taking down all your questions.
Oh, that's
where
okay.
I live, where I was,
Don't worry
where I was
about
born,
that.
how many sisters.
Yeah. I got you. I got you covered. So you just answer them, and I'll just keep bringing them, and sometimes we'll spawn some different things. So take us back to the beginning, Marilyn. Where were you born?
I was actually born in Kuwait.
Kuwait.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, I was born in Kuwait, but then lived there for the first decade of my life, and then moved back to India. I was raised there in India until I again went back to the UK to study. I spent a couple of years there, and then came to Dubai for what I thought was just going to be a year or two, just to wet my feet and see how things, panned out. And here I am 16 years later. So
16 years. Wow.
16 years in Dubai. Yeah, I didn't intend to stay here so long. I said, it was just supposed to be a year or two. But Dubai is a really lovely place to be. It's like quicksand. Once you get here, it's very difficult to leave.
No, that's a
Hotel California style.
that's a great descriptor. I've never heard of that. Someone say it's like quicksand. You get there, it's hard to leave. Wow. So we'll unpack that a little bit. Okay. So how about your family a little bit? Do you have siblings?
Yes, I do. My dad died when I was very young. I was 2 years old when he died. And my mom remarried about when I was 15. And I have a younger sister as well. Yes, so it's just the two of us.
Okay. Fantastic. Now, what did your stepfather and your mom do for
Well,
living?
they're based in Goa now, and they run a venue where they have weddings. We have a huge house back there, and they have weddings. It's like a Portuguese colonial style mansion that they have weddings in. So that's what they're busy with. Well, less busy now since the pandemic, and not many people are
Sure.
having big weddings. But yes,
Yeah. Fantastic. So did they do that while you were growing up?
yes, they did. Yes, they
Okay.
did.
Fantastic.
Yes.
So were your parents the type that were great supporters of you, or what was that relationship, that dynamic with your parents?
Yes, they were. I think, but it was pretty much hands-off parenting. Coming from it's not like it is now. I see where parents are super involved and with their kids every time. We were pretty much left to do our own business, and that's just the way it was. It didn't seem unnatural or wrong at that time, and I don't think it was either. So yeah, I think we had a pretty laid back sense of parenting, but that really worked well because it helped build our resilience. It helped build our sense of being able to take care of ourselves and make decisions for ourselves as well, which is a key part of growing up, I think.
Yeah, I can relate to that. That's a great way to describe it. I would say my parents were fairly hands off too. My father was a policeman and gone a lot. My mother was into banking and things, and so they were busy people. And it's not that they
Yeah,
didn't love me or support me.
yeah, of
It's
course
just,
not.
yeah. But and my dad was a little strange because being in the police officer, he always worried that he wouldn't come home someday. That he'd be killed in the line of
I can
duty.
understand that. Yes.
Yeah, so he would literally just say, "Hey, you need to be ready to be the man of the family," because I was the oldest boy, and that started about age 5. So that sent me off and running. So I can relate to a little bit of hands off. Okay, so what did you do growing up with your spare time? What were your interests? What are the things you focused on?
I was an avid reader, but I think I used reading as an escape. I was pretty much an introvert, and for me, reading just took me to a whole other world where everything was fantastic and wonderful and fantastical, and I could just live there for hours and hours at a time. So I would literally forget to eat or sleep, but because I was be so consumed with reading. But quite a lot of that had also to do with I I was an introvert, so it for me it was just like sort of like a defense mechanism. She's busy, I was too busy reading to actually go out and make friends or be overly social. I think that had a lot to do with it as well, and I think that's where it stemmed from this growing up as a teenager. I think that lack of confidence and that sense of insecurity and just like not knowing where you actually fit in and looking for teachers or mentors to guide you, but didn't seem to work out that well. And I think that's what that sort of, if I think back as to what started me on my current path, it would have to lead back to that I wish there was somebody there to tell me at that point of time, there's so much that you can do to ready yourself for being an adult, for adulthood. There's so much that you can learn and prepare yourself right now. And unfortunately, the education system, whatever we're learning in that, was just pointless by the time we graduated. Most of it was irrelevant anyway, and not that we remembered much of it after the exam in any
Yeah,
case.
yeah,
And that's precisely why I thought, teens, they say that the defining decade for a human being is the 20s. But
yep.
if 20s are your defining decade, then how do you prepare for that? You're not going to you can't prepare for your defining decade while you're in the define. You need to prepare for that the decade before. And that's where I started thinking and wanting to do something that would specifically be helpful to teens. Also, I guess I might say that this realization really came to fore when I had kids of my own.
Mm-hmm.
When I got two daughters who are now 12 and 14. But when they were about 8 and 10, it sort of struck me that the education system isn't really preparing them for anything
No.
that's for life or that's worthwhile. And I started getting a little worried that I thought things have changed. I thought from the time I went to school, from the time now they're going to school, that everything would have changed and modernized, but it hasn't. It's actually
No.
completely the same. And that was really concerning to me. And I guess I have now moved on from concern to outrage, because really, what are we doing? This is the future of our kids we're talking about, and we can't be so laid back. Mainly because parents are trusting the education system to take care of all this. Most parents are. We really think that if we send our kids to school, everything's going to be fine. It's just as long as they get good grades and get into a good college, everything's going to work out. It couldn't be further from the truth.
I agree.
And that is something that I felt really strongly about, and like I said, moved from concern to outrage, and that's what started. That's what started the Kids Finance Initiative.
Okay.
It really was something that it was. I like to see it as a labor of love,
Okay.
not just for my kids, but for any kid who'd like to learn differently.
Okay. So, if you could, and then we're going to back up a little bit because there's still some more of the story I want to hear. So could you throw out your website or social media where people can connect with you? And then I've got some questions to go back to for a minute or two.
Okay,
go
sure.
ahead.
Our website is kidsfinanceinitiative.com. That's www.kidsfinanceinitiative.com. Our Instagram handle is at kids_finance_initiative. Facebook is at Kids Finance Initiative. So I think if you just type in Kids Finance Initiative in Google, it should take you through. Yeah, you'll find it. You should find it.
So I wanted to back up a little bit more so people understand other influences. And it's true. But I think that the decade of defining us is really about 20 years. I think it's from about 7 or 8 years old up until about 30, because it's further now. So where did you get your education? Now did you finish high school?
So a little bit everywhere. Yeah, a little bit everywhere. A little bit in Kuwait, a little bit in India, and then in the UK. So yeah, just a little bit everywhere.
Just a little bit. What's the difference between the education systems in Kuwait to India to London? I mean, is there any? I
can tell you similarities.
Okay,
they're all.
They're all broken, probably, right?
They're all broken. They're all broken. It doesn't matter which curriculum, whether US, UK, Canadian curriculum, Indian curriculum. It doesn't really matter. Everyone's teaching our kids things that are so. It's just outdated. We really need to update this. We really need to teach them life skills, which aren't part of the curriculum. And unfortunately, for example, something like financial literacy, if it's not a government mandate, then the schools don't have any motivation to do that. They have, and it's not done. So they might talk about it and they might say it's important, and they might say, oh, we do it in economics and we do it in business studies, but we know that that's not the case. I mean, I've done an MBA, and I can tell you it taught me nothing about handling my own money. They teach you how to handle a company balance sheet, and you can be pretty good at that, but it teaches you nothing. I mean, I've sort of combed through the curriculums of every management course, finance courses over here. You can do a 3-year program in, a postgraduate diploma in banking and finance, and they'll teach you everything under the sun, from tax law to compliance to everything. But there isn't even a half an hour session on your own money, on personal finance.
Yeah.
I just find that unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I didn't intend to start a business, Rex. When I started out, I was just looking for a program to enroll my kids in, because I realized that they were growing up with they really didn't have any sense of or value for money, and I thought, okay, I'm sure there should be a program for that. I just want to enroll them. But everything out there was just it was just an eyewash, and it was just full of trite advice and tips, like have 3 jars, and that isn't really going to do much in terms of was not very complex. It was not nuanced. It had no insights behind it. So I thought, okay, how difficult can it be? I'll teach them myself. So I got the curriculum, got trained, and I started to teach them. And that was a disaster because you can never teach your own kids anything.
Exactly. I was about to talk to you about that because I can
No,
remember.
I learned the hard way. I learned that the hard way. It's like that door slammed very painfully in my face.
Yes.
Um, so
I
kids
mean,
kids
well,
don't learn from
think
us.
about this, if you would, for a second here, Marilyn. When you were 15 to 18, did you believe almost anything your parents would have
No,
taught you?
nothing.
No,
Absolutely.
nothing.
We did. It
I
was
could,
white noise when they spoke, right? And
yeah, white
it's
noise.
karma coming to bite us back. Like we didn't listen to our parents, our kids don't listen to us, and I'm sure our parents didn't listen to their parents either.
Yeah,
I know for a fact they didn't. So we can't complain. But when we talk to kids, it's more like white noise. They're just tuning us out. They don't even know what we're saying. It's just sort of humming. So I realized very quickly that that wasn't going to work. But kids do learn when they are when they're put with an unbiased adult in the company of peers, then suddenly it becomes much more relevant. And also that you're taking the time and the trouble to put them through a program that's completely focused only on teaching them about money, then it brings them that realization that this is an important topic. It must be,
yeah,
otherwise why am I here? And just that is a huge is a huge mindset change. Because I keep saying, for kids, this is an unconscious and incompetence when it comes to learning about money.
sure.
They don't know that they don't know.
Yeah,
They don't know that, and they don't know how crucial this skill is. How crucial it's going to be for their future. How crucial it is for them to step up and just play full out and live a life on their own terms. This knowledge is crucial for that, but they don't know that. And
no,
to make matters worse, there's a cognitive bias of the Dunning-Kruger effect, which says that people with a lower ability at a skill tend to overestimate their ability at the skill. So we have teenagers who don't know anything about money, yet think they do. So
yes,
you can imagine how that danger compounds.
yeah,
And that's what I mean by unconscious incompetence. And that is something that we try to address really on. And it's also something, if we understand, we can empathize and understand why there would be a little bit of a resistance to coming and learning about something, because they don't feel they need it, because they already know about it. I'm
yeah,
spending money. I spend a lot of money. I know all about it. So,
yeah.
just to give you that was a little bit of a peek into why I started doing what I do.
Well, the thing, I love that term. I've used it for years. Not a whole lot of people do. And I apply it to so many things about being an unconscious incompetent. I'm in tech, okay, and I've been in tech for 35 years, and I bump into people who have just a little bit of knowledge, and then they think that they're telling me stuff. I'm like, you know what? You don't even know what you don't know. So slow
Yeah.
down. And so kids are that way, and it's human behavior. So how long have you been doing this project? I mean, I know you developed it for your kids. Okay. When did you decide, okay, I'm going to take this and go outside the door? Because I think one of the things, I am very frustrated with the American. Now, I don't have experience, but I'm very frustrated with the American education system because 90% of the stuff that where the kids are being taught have no application to life. You know, learning about money, learning about how to live independently, learning about how to live with roommates, learning how to, basic car maintenance. I mean, you could go
Every
down,
aspect of your life, right?
yeah,
Almost every
aspect of,
aspect. I cannot think of a single aspect of your life that doesn't have to do with money,
yeah,
unfortunately. So
exactly. And so there's all these little skills that these kids need to know, and parents try to teach them, but the kids, like you said, it's white noise. And you know what? I would just look back as like, you know what? You need to somebody needs to be teaching you, because you won't listen to mom and dad, about the things that it takes required to live on your own. And that can be for some kids. I interviewed a young lady recently who talked about it was a struggle to learn how to do laundry. I'm like, oh my goodness, what were you doing in high school and stuff? So, but I agree with you. So the question I would pose to you then is, when did you decide, and then how did you decide to take this out of the walls of your home and bring it to the public?
yeah, so this happened about 4.5 years ago when
Okay.
I thought, okay, it seemed like a good idea at the time, might I add. So I thought, this is because it's not just. I realized very quickly that it's not just my kids who are who don't know about money, and you can't blame them. This isn't something any school's doing. There isn't a single school anywhere in the world that's doing enough to teach kids about money. But I realized it wasn't just my kids; it was everybody's kids. Everybody had the same problem, and I thought, that would be a good. It's a good niche to get into. Also, I think I had the advantage of my ignorance played in my favor. I'm not an academic. I am not from the academic. I don't come from that kind of a background. So for me, I didn't know what rules not to break. I just went and broke all the rules. There were a lot of people talking to me and saying, you can't teach kids these things. It's not part of the curriculum. It's not part of a. I was like, why not? And I just went and did it anyway. And I think that's what Naveen Jain. I'm a big fan of his. He always says, in order to disrupt an industry, you need somebody from outside the industry, because if you're within the industry, you can only improve on it. You can
Yeah.
you do incremental, you just improve it incrementally. Whereas if you're from outside the industry, you come with completely different ideas and you disrupt it. And that was the thinking behind it. So I think because I didn't know what rules to break, I just went and broke them all, and I said, okay, this is the way we're going to do this. And yeah, that I think hope answers your question.
Okay. So I love your descriptor, rebel educator. Is that somebody who gave that to you, or is that just your mantra?
No, it's just my mantra. Because Rex, if you ask most people, what do you remember about school? What do you remember feeling in school? Okay, they're going to say either bored or confused. Okay, and if you have any good memories and you were feeling good, it's because of your friends. It's had nothing to
Yes.
do with the learning. So
Yeah.
the actual learning in school, which is the primary reason anybody goes to school or you're sent to school, is you left you feeling either bored or confused.
Yeah.
And that is, for me, is just I find that heartbreaking, because learning is something we were born to do. We instinctively do that as children. And unfortunately, with the current education system, with everybody just feeling bored or confused, education has just lost its purpose, its allure to the young kids. They just see it as something they need to get through. And I don't believe it needs to be that way. I believe it needs to be empowering. It needs to be exciting. It needs to really turn their minds on and turn their hearts on. And that's why I use the term rebel educator, because it is going to be different from any other education that you would have likely been exposed to.
Okay. So I'm assuming you're delivering this online in a self-paced course. Is that how you're doing it?
Well, we don't do we don't do asynchronous. You don't get pre-recorded videos. It is a program that's done live. It's a live coaching program that we do,
Oh,
mainly
nice.
because this program is for teenagers, and teens need to have that kind of discussion. They need to be able to ask questions. They need to be able to build a relationship. You
Yep.
can't build a relationship with somebody you're seeing on a pre-recorded video. And teens specifically, I think, need that. They need to ask questions. They need to debate. They need to discuss. They don't learn by listening. I mean, I wish
No.
teens learned by listening. They don't. They learn
No.
by discussing, by debating, by asking intelligent questions. And that's why we have really stuck to uh, the 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 live web class, live interactive web class format of it, because it's a crucial part of how teens learn effectively.
Okay. So how long is the course? Is it multiple sessions or?
So it depends on the age group. So we say teens, but we also have a program for tweens, so between 10 to 12 as well. So we have a program for them. It's a 2-week program, and for the teens, it's a 3-week program that we run. So it runs,
Okay.
Sunday to Thursday, 1 hour a day, and they still have the weekends off. But it's an hour a day approximately on the weekdays. Like I said, it's a month of your life. And just on the weekdays, because you're going to spend 17, 18 years in the school system, by the end of which you are not going to remember most of what you studied, and most of what you studied is going to be outdated or irrelevant
Hmm.
otherwise. I can guarantee you that this 1 month is going to be the most useful, productive 1 month that you have ever had with regard to learning. And it's not just in terms of what you learn, but also in terms of enjoying the learning process, which for me is as important, if not more important, because there cannot be true learning without a little bit of joy in it. You need to enjoy that. That's
Yeah.
what makes your brain hardwired into actually paying more attention to what you're learning. So our programs are really, sort of walking. It's very easy to run a purely educational program, and really very easy to run a really fun program as well. But the difficulty arises in marrying the two together when you're having a fun and educational program. And that's really what we are doing with the program that we run.
Fantastic. So I'm assuming that the pandemic really hasn't impacted your business much, has it?
Well, before the pandemic, Rex, we only did live in-person classes. I mean, if you had asked me in February of 2020, would you, because a lot of people did, like, are you considering delivering this online? And I would have told you, no way. I need to be, my teachers need to be in class, and it just goes to show how little I knew at that point of time. And yet, when the pandemic hit in March, in 3 weeks, we had all our programs were now online. We have students from all over joining, from the Indian subcontinent, from Africa. We have them from the UK, from Europe. As long as they are within that time zone, it seems to work for them. And so the pandemic has affected us in a way that it has widened our impact and widened our reach. And I think now with this new way of delivering it online, we're not going to go back to actual physical classes because this just works so perfectly.
Yeah, exactly.
It just does.
It's really been interesting to watch my senior in high school, and here in the American education system, when a kid hits that senior year, they're kind of checked out. They're looking forward to whatever they're doing in college or military or a job or whatever, and so they're kind of checked out. Well, when the pandemic hit, the schools were shut down that second semester over her junior year. Okay, well, like you mentioned, my whole high school memories were I was a student council president guy. I was playing football. I mean, Mr. Social. That's most of my memories and stuff. So
Yeah.
half of her high school, it stopped and they just went online. And then, then she was only online a couple hours a day. And you want to talk about being really checked out? Oh my goodness, because the systems were not in great. Now, here's the crazy part is she had an online bowling class. Now, keep in mind the bowling alleys were closed. So literally they came on to Zoom, the tool they're using like Zoom, and they would talk bowling for a few minutes, take attendance, and they checked out, and everybody got an A. And I thought, the system is robbing us and her. I mean, can you believe that? Online bowling?
Unbelievable,
Unbelievable.
unbelievable. But right now, I can believe anything because I can understand initially because the schools were caught unawares as well. So in
Sure.
terms of in terms of delivering this, so I can understand. They took a couple of weeks or maybe even a month or two, but it's taken so much longer than that. And
Oh,
and I think schools need to understand that delivering a program in person, like teaching in person classes, is very different from teaching a class online when you have
yes.
students in Zoom. And they didn't do the training.
No.
The same teachers who were teaching in the same style in the same way just came in front of a computer and did the same thing that they would do in class, which wasn't working. And
Yeah.
when you say checked out, I think that is the one description that would fit every school student
Yep.
that I know, particularly. And they half the time their videos were off. How
Yeah.
can you interact with any teacher, or how can the teacher interact with you if all the kids, if she can't see them? I find that impossible.
Yeah.
I
And
can't
so
do that.
I would write letters or emails. I'm from the old school from ever ago. I write emails to the superintendent, and I would just get dismissed like I'm just some crazy. But it's just like, you're stealing from my family. Okay, we're paying
Absolutely.
you to educate my kid, and she's got an online bowling class, and you're just taking attendance and giving her a grade. That's ridiculous. And so you want to talk about super checked out. She had a job at a Chick-fil-A, the chicken places here in the States. She was pretty much working full time because she only had classes 2 hours a day, and
Yeah,
half of them were this
absolutely.
ridiculous, you know? And so I just was fierce. Now, thankfully, we escaped that system here on Saturday. She graduates, so we'll be very happy for her and on to the next stuff. But she's been focused on the way into the next stuff since January. And
Yeah.
that's a joke. That's robbing from the kids. That's a horrible representation of the school system. And they just basically, dismissed the whole thing, and we're just lucky to be alive and all this stuff. I'm like, BS, it was just horrible. So when I saw to take a look to ask you to come on, I'm like, I gotta talk to her because this is just absolutely insane, the things that are happening. And there's so much that we could bypass. And think about it this way: you can go out on YouTube and find any topic you want. You can go out there
Yeah.
and find
True.
any topic you want. So if you love Indian arts, or if you love American history or whatever, you can go find all of that. Okay, we don't need someone to regurgitate that to us. We need
That's true.
real skills and those types of things. And so I think what you're doing is amazing. I mean, it's absolutely amazing because,
And also, can I just say, Rex, when we say the kids are checked out, let's just, we can't blame them. They don't have one iota of the blame for that, because
no,
they are, how can they do that? It is just the way they're being taught and how they're being taught is with such a lot of, it's no surprise that the kids are disengaged and disinterested. I mean, I know my daughter came to me and she was just saying, Mom, she's saying, can you please listen to this class? Please, just like for 10 minutes. I couldn't go through 2.5 minutes. I was like, you know what? You suffer. There's no need for me to.
yeah,
you know, I just couldn't do it. The way the teachers were just droning on. And I was like,
yeah.
is this what they do in class as well? Or is this just because, does it just sound worse over over Zoom, or was this, the way they were doing, having regular classes, and we just now happen to find out that all of this high school fees that we're paying is actually
It's a waste of
just
money.
money down the drain. Yeah.
Well, I think it's interesting, and I don't know if it will take place, and I hope parents force it. But because of the pandemic, it's been brought to our front of our minds now that, hey, maybe it's time to re-examine all of this stuff. Let's take a look at all these things, because there's so much of this fluff we could get rid of. And then here in the United States, with all the nonsense, I don't know if you kept up with the teachers' unions playing their stupid games and
Yeah.
stuff. I believe because of the pandemic, it's time to just put the brakes on everything and reevaluate, because we just have a broken system, and people are, doing things that they did 100 years ago, and they're not effective anymore. And, when a kid gets a mobile device around 10, 12 years old, and they're hyper connected to all this stuff, that's a different environment than when I grew up, when we didn't even have mobile phones and stuff back then.
No,
It was just a
of
whole
course
different
not.
world. So it's a different environment. And, we're doing things, that we should have been changed. And then, we walk around. I started computers in 1987 after learning about them in high school in 83. And you know what? I'm walking around with my Galaxy S20 smartphone, and I have more computing power and memory than the biggest mainframes that were, at that point in time. And I have access to all the world's data. Okay. Well, why don't we change the way that, because we have that resource in our pocket, why don't we change the way to challenge kids, to engage them, to say, okay, use those resources? We don't do that. We're just out there pumping out the same old thing. And, I look at, when I compare my youngest daughter and this horrible experience she's had with the way the school
High
systems
school.
in high school,
Mhm.
to compare to my other kids, it's a completely different experience.
That's
I mean,
true.
yeah, she was robbed, in my opinion, she was robbed, and I hold them responsible of half of her high school. I mean, it absolutely was, because they weren't innovative. They literally just sort of responded, threw stuff up, like you said, it was the same people and it was the same drone and that kind of stuff. And the kids are looking at them like, you're crazy. Yeah. The example of the online bowling, I don't think I'll ever forget that. I mean,
No,
how do you
I
have,
think that really has to go down in history as one of the most ridiculous
yeah,
statements I've ever heard.
yeah, it was a waste of their time, a waste of her
But
time.
it was not even it wasn't like it. That's the only excuse. I mean, I've seen my kids do on, when they had PE, and the teachers were allowed them to keep their video off. So the kids were sitting on the couch with a bag of potato chips, and the teacher's doing PE there. And I'm like, what are you going? We have a PE class,
Yeah,
and all the kids were doing the same thing.
yeah,
So
it's
yeah,
crazy.
it's
What's amazing. So now, are your classes capped from the number of students that can log in?
Yeah, so we have multiple classes, but we do have a cap on the number of students, just because of the smaller because it's an interactive class, and we want the kids to talk, to discuss, to be able to to be able to engage. We do cap it at around 15 kids
Okay.
in a batch, which is small enough to have that discussion, yet big enough to have a critical mass. So you can actually have, break them out into groups. They can do breakout rooms, have discussions, have debates among themselves as well, which is how we run the program.
Okay. Now, have you thought about scaling this so you can teach millions and millions of kids? I mean, what are your thoughts around that? Are you going to certify different teachers? I mean, have you thought about how you could scale it?
Yeah, we are beginning to think about that, because we have a lot of people asking us, how do we, can we franchise it, or can we
Yeah.
train our teachers to do that? So we're in the process of that right now. But we're also in the process, like I said, I think we have so much of pivoting happening. I'm just dizzy from all the
Yeah.
pivoting that's
Yeah.
happened since. So it's just one step at a time. We have just rejigged our entire product line in terms of the programs that we're running, how we run them, what is the for us parental engagement is really very key. And I think that's something that has not been really taken too much into consideration with the recent education system. You just get a report card at the end of the year telling
Yeah.
or a PTA with their. So this is something that when you're teaching kids about money, you can't do it in a vacuum. The parents are an integral part of that equation. So our program takes into account that as well. We meet with the parents, we meet with the kids before the program starts. At the end of the program, we have another meeting with the parents where we take them through what was taught to your child,
That's great.
and what's the next step, because this can't just be a 2-week thing that
No.
okay, we've done and dusted. It's continuous learning, and it makes no sense if your kid comes for the program and then goes back home and you're doing something completely antithetical
Completely
to what we're
different.
teaching. So
Oh,
it really helps.
I'm so glad to hear that you've got parental involvement with this, because
Absolutely.
I mean, we already know that from traditional learning. The difference between the kids that are successful and not are the parents that are involved. I mean, that's just, and the teachers will tell you that. The teachers will tell you that today. So that's awesome that you're doing this. Plus, repetition is the mother of learning. If you are engaged in it and you're repeating these things, that makes all the difference in the world.
That's absolutely. And there's something else that we do. So every kid who comes to our program, I mean, it doesn't matter whether they are 10 or 24, because that's the oldest we've had in our program. They have to commit that everything they learn in class, they teach to one other person. So it doesn't matter. Most of them commit to teaching their mom or their dad, whatever they learned in class. But that is so crucial, because the reason we do that is because when you teach someone, you learn twice.
Yes.
When you teach someone, you remember better. And when you teach someone, there's a way that the information is hardwired in your brain that's different, that is actually more robust. And you can't teach someone something that you don't understand completely. Yeah. So it works in so many different ways. And we use different techniques like this to actually make sure that the kids are understanding and can assimilate what they've learned, and they, and can actually explain it to somebody else.
Yeah.
Because when you explain it to somebody else, it gives you a different, you understand different aspects of the same concept. And when somebody asks you a question, then you need to think for yourself as to how to answer that.
Yeah.
So it's just these simple things, which anybody can incorporate. I mean, it's not like it's a secret, but nobody does.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, kids don't have a favorite subject.
No.
What they have is a favorite teacher. If they like the teacher, they like the subject. And it doesn't matter across cultures, across ages. It's the same thing. I like my teacher, therefore I love the subject. It's never the other way around. And that's something that it's so easy to actually get them, to do that. You just need to take time to build a relationship. And it's not about discipline or compliance. It's about engagement. Because I think a lot of schools here, they just, oh my goodness, these teens are, they're disrespectful and they will never listen. And I'm like, did you try, maybe try a different tactic with them? Are you teaching them something that they're interested in? And have you told them why? Because most of the kids are disinterested or disengaged because they see no relevance with what they're studying to how it's going to help them. And to be fair, there isn't. For most of it, there isn't. But for quite a lot, there is. And we could have very easily taken the time to explain that to them.
Yeah.
And that's one of our, part of our blueprint. And when we're talking about reasoning with them, just like Simon Sinek says in his book, start with why. Tell them why they need it, because kids aren't idiots. If they know that they're going to benefit from this, self-interest kicks in. That will drive up their motivation. That will make sure that they will stick to it, even if it's hard. And once they understand the benefits, they're motivated to learn. So why don't we just tell them how it's going? But I've asked this across thousands of kids I've teach. Are you told why you're learning something? And the answer across the board is to pass the exam.
Yeah.
That's not a reason. That's not a reason. And so everything that we teach the kids, every single topic, when we start the class, every single topic, we always start with why you need to learn it and how it's going to help you. Now, not 5 or 10 years in the future when you graduate or get a job. I'm going to tell you how what you learn today is going to help you right now. Suddenly, you see them just like, oh, okay, maybe this is something I should be paying attention to. Yeah. It makes a world of a difference. And I don't see why it should be different with any other topic. Okay. It's just a question of taking the time to build that relationship, to tell them why, to explain that to them.
Well, I like one of the things that you mentioned just a little bit back. Your passion is amazing. You are absolutely just on fire with this. But you're doing a really important thing that I think is having them teach it to someone else. Okay. In my church, I have been volunteered or asked to teach Sunday school sometimes. So I have to prepare a lesson. Now, I'm not a biblical scholar or those types of things. Not a scriptorian that can, recite those types of things. So when I prepare that lesson and I teach it to others, the one that learns the most is me, because I've had to teach it
Absolutely.
to somebody. So what you're doing is
You are so right.
amazing.
You are so
Yes,
right, Rex.
right. And so,
We just tend
I'm a
to learn so
layman,
much.
and I'm a layman. I have no teaching background or any of that kind of stuff. All the coaching I did in sports, that kind of stuff. I'm a layman, and so it's something very simple, that I've been able to teach there, and it's something new every time I have to do it. But I'm the one that learns the most, and so I walk away. Wow, that's great. So that's an awesome thing that you're doing. So, how are the courses? How many are they available now? Are you booked? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we have programs running every month, almost. And now, just recently, I'm really proud to say that we've just had a partnership with one of the biggest banks here in the UAE. It's called the Emirates NBD. So we're partnering with them to offer this as a program in a couple of schools here. So they are
Nice.
sponsoring the program for schools. So this is something that I've been working to for a long time, and it took a lot of time to get to come to this stage. But we're starting this at the end of this month, where we're running this across, for 50 kids in about 5 schools over here. So that's just as a start. And once this, they want to see how, it's like a pilot program to see how it goes. But I'm sure it's going to be fantastic, because that's so we have programs starting in May. We have the next one over the summer holidays, which is July and August, as well. And that's really a busy time, because that's the time everyone's off from school, and the parents are. And also now there's nobody's going anywhere. Travel has really come to pretty much a standstill, because under normal circumstances, nobody's here in the Middle East in June, July, August. Everyone,
too damn hot.
Everyone's gone. They're just gone. Last year was the first year in 16 years. Was the first year I spent the summer in Dubai.
In Dubai,
actually,
too hot.
In Dubai, it was the first time. Yeah. So, but it was our busiest time, because that's the time, I guess, parents feel that, okay, now it's time to look into something else.
Now, how affordable are these classes?
So the classes, okay, I need to put it for the, don't have it in dollars. It's a 2.5. So we have 2 different programs, right? We have one for the kids and one for the teens. And the one for the kids is 1,200 dirhams. And the one for the teens is double that, because we teach the kids about investing. But when I say investing, again, I'd like to unpack that a little further. This isn't day trading. This isn't stock picking. It is long-term wealth building, and we're very against the sort of, because there are a lot of institutions that teach kids how to invest without teaching them anything before that. So you directly have stock trading classes, or Bitcoin. I'm like, your kids don't understand. Investing is important. It is really important to teach the kids that, and it's good for them to understand. But investing is like the roof of the house. You can't put the roof of the house without building strong walls and strong foundation. That's a recipe for disaster, which is why you see so many people losing their shirts over investment scams, and over investment mistakes. So we're very, very clear that you cannot enroll for our investment program if you have not done a previous money management program, either with us or somebody else, because it's really important. You need to have your basics in place. You need to understand, credits and debits and saving and budgeting, because these are the building blocks. If you don't have this, you aren't really going to go very far with your investing prowess.
No, I agree 100%. So throw out your website again so people can get in touch with you.
Yes, it's www.kidsfinanceinitiative.com.
Okay. Well, I can tell you this. I love what you're doing. If there's anything I can do to help you expand it over here in my footprint and stuff, I'd love to help you do that. I think it's just awesome, because
thank you, Rex.
It's our education system, in my opinion. Let's just blow the whole thing up and start over. Okay. We really should. Now, you can't get away from some of the basics. Like math is so important, and reading skills are so important. And, there's elements of all of these, but the way we're delivering it now is just terrible. It's just terrible.
Exactly what you're saying. It's not just, we don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but we definitely need to renew the bathwater, and that is something that needs to be done, because learning shouldn't be a chore. It shouldn't be coercive. It shouldn't be depressing. It should be something that kids automatically look forward to. When you see kids just like, looking the only reason kids go to school is to meet their friends. That's the only reason kids, it's the same reason we went to school, and it's the same thing I see continuing now. And now they don't even have that because they
Oh,
can't even go and see their friends. So now it's purely the joy of learning, of which there isn't much.
no.
So maybe it is time for us to, look back and see, if we just get into the history of how education and schooling started, it had a really dark history,
Yeah.
and it's got really coercive undertones, and which is part of what is very, very apparent in the school system today.
Yeah.
So a little bit of that, if we can change that and revolutionize that, because incremental change is not going to cut it.
Well, and certainly we should never ever have a kid experience online bowling like this.
No, that that's
Isn't that
absolutely true.
crazy? That's just
Online
absolutely
bowling, that
crazy. Yeah, you're going to remember that one for a long time. All right.
sure,
So I have one last question for you that I ask all my
sure.
guests. Okay. In especially in Western culture, we have this idea of a bucket list. Okay, things I'm going to do before I leave the world, and it's just a list of all these ambitions. Well, in the universe, there's an opposite of everything. Okay, so there's a list out there of things that you never want to do. All right, and that list rhymes with bucket and starts with an F, but that I'm not going to say that because it's a family show. Okay. So I'm going to ask you what might be a thing or two that's on your effort list. Now, I'll give you some samples from me, okay? Some things are
Mhm.
on my effort list. I'm not going to have a whole bunch of pet snakes. That ain't going to happen. All right? There's no snakes. I'm not eating sardines, okay? And I've traveled long places in the world eating all kinds of crazy things, but nope, sorry, I'm done with sardines. Not doing that one again. And then this one is not everybody's had a chance to do this, but never, ever again would I do a Lakota Sioux sweat lodge. It is too much heat, too much humidity, too much drumming, and too much chanting all at one time. Okay. So, what might be an item that would be on your effort list, Marilyn, knowing that you've lived in lots of places and do lots of things? What's an item or two on your effort list?
I never want to be involved in selling financial products to kids, which is a big part of what institutions do over here. When they're teaching kids about money, it's usually a facade for actually selling them something.
Okay.
I never want to be seen as someone who's trying to take advantage of the situation just to further their own agenda, and that is very, very clear. My integrity is right up front and personal for me, and that's the number one thing. So I'd never do anything to jeopardize that.
Sure.
And I never want to be seen as I guess as a hypocrite. So I'm going to live. It may not be, I may not always say the right thing, but I will just always say what I believe. So
Oh, that's
I will
great.
never ever say something that I don't believe in.
Well, those are fantastic answers. Those are great. All right. So listen, I
Thank
want
you.
to thank you for coming on. You have a great evening over there in Dubai. It was great to have you on. You have won over a proponent and super fan in Rex, and so loved having you on the show.
Rex, thank you so much. This was such an enjoyable time. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, fantastic. All right, folks, we'll wrap that up for this episode. We want to thank everyone for listening in. And please do stop by Marilyn's website. And then also, please do stop by the rexandrewshow.com. You can get more information about what she's up to and the things, links, and all that good stuff, plus all of our guests that come on the show. So until next time, I'll just say the three things that I say every time. Be safe, but be bold and make it a great day.